Hey everybody, happy summer. Coming at you from the heat of midsummer where we are sitting with red clover, Trifolium pratense, and just like another super common garden weed that is impeccable in its healing power. So let's look at Trifolium pratense from a botanical perspective. We've got what look like three leaves, but actually are leaflets on a stem that protrudes from the main stem of the plant. And you can see that there is just like one main vein and then some really organized veins coming out from there, from the center, pointing upward to the rounded edge of the leaf. I'm not sure if the sun's going to catch this quite right, but there's little tiny hairs on the back of the leaf as well. And the red clover and the white clover are both blooming right now and will continue to bloom, especially if they're in your lawn and you mow them. And I've never really had this experience where they don't come back in the garden where I'm sitting right now, but they kind of self-seed and continue to grow, and they're really nourished in the compost that they're planted in. But if you do have them in the yard, they will proliferate if mowed, and they'll continue to produce flower. The first round of flowers comes right now at the beginning of summer, and the second round of flowers, or at high summer here in Vermont, we just are 2 days past summer solstice, and it has been hot. So it's been a great summer for harvesting flowers. And the flower of the inflorescence of the red clover is actually made up of many tiny individual flowers. It's in the pea family. So this plant is related to the peas that we grow in the garden. This is one flower. And so what we do when we harvest our red clover is we always just take a moment to be with the plant and acknowledge its life and its life force energy. The medicine of the plant is certainly enhanced and certainly detracted from depending on our behavior, whether we act like kind, considerate, earth-sharing beings. So I always just sit with the plant for a moment and then ask if it's okay to harvest some of the inflorescences for tea. Today we're going to be harvesting the most beautiful tops of the flowers, which was one of the great lessons I learned from one of my teachers, Guido Maze, when we first were collecting red clover together. He said, this is a small batch operation. We are going to collect the flowers that are the most beautiful and in their fullest form, and then they'll offer us that medicine. And so we collect the most beautiful flowers. They still have their little petioles on the bottom and their set of leaflets, and we just are going to harvest them right here in this empty basket. So what is Trifolium pratense good for? It is considered an alterative, which means that it alters the body. Alterative can also lead to an understanding that it's a blood purifier, so it's going to work with the blood through the lymph, through the liver, and it's going to purify any impurities or toxins. Specifically with red clover, this one has a little bit more to develop flower. It's green, so I'm going to leave it. And this one actually is already starting to go by with some brown, so I'm also going to leave it. With flowers, as you probably already know, we can certainly ask the plant if we can harvest all the flowers, and feel free to leave some for the pollinators. The more we harvest, the more it will produce, because of course the plant is in a life cycle and it's wanting to just offer its seeds back to the earth and continually reproduce. So if we're taking it midstream, if we're taking the flowers midstream reproductive cycle, it's going to keep making them. And eventually we want to give that plant, its due effort and what it's here for. But for now, I'm actually collecting these flowers for a person I'm working with who is dealing with stomach cancer. And these flowers are indicated specifically for masses that are in the body that need to be dissolved. Now, it's interesting because there's two indications that I really love about red clover. One is any kind of masses from the neck, the throat through the neck, And so I'm thinking of like, I have a friend who just like has always had this large sort of massy bump right here, and I'm gonna try to lure that person into drinking some nice chilled, you know, like red clover tea for the rest of the summer with honey and maybe some peppermint. But red clover moves in and it helps to dissolve masses in the body. It's often used for breast cancer. It's often used for lumps in the breast, for residual sort of like holdings of cyst holdings. So perhaps there was once upon a time when I've heard a story from Matthew Wood about someone who had I read about this in the Book of Herbal Wisdom. It's a pretty great book with, you know, like I love to learn from story, and Matthew Wood tells a lot of stories in here. So under red clover, he tells a story about, I think it was his brother. He had some oral surgery on teeth early in life, and there was an infection, and as a child he formed sort of like a cyst near the neck somewhere. And later in life, as an adult, he was prescribed or suggested and educated to take red clover tincture, which is also another preparation of it, and the mass dissolved. It was just an old holding of some toxins that his body had released and gathered around. So we can think of masses, lumps, holdings, tumors, and red clover being specific in those arenas. Now, it also is specific for stomach cancer, so we're going to take this incredible inflorescence, this beautiful expression of summer, this pink, lavender, purple, brilliant being, and we're going to dry them in a cool, dark place. They can be very absorbent. They're like sponges. So I'm actually going to test these out, and it's mid-morning. I'm going to take these indoors and not harvest anymore right now. I'm probably going to wait until midday to make sure that they really have all of the morning's dew evaporated off of them. It's not really the time of day that I would harvest most herbs, but with red clover, through experience, it's just been really clear that they can hold so much moisture like a sponge, and need a little extra time to dry. So yeah, we're gathering these for tea. Makes a lovely chilled tea. You can mix it with other herbs. And when we talk about medicinal values, medicinal levels of plant material, we're talking about 3 tablespoons of dried plant material to a quart of water steeped and covered for 20 minutes in hot water, and then strained, and that's when you can add the honey and start to chill it. You can make a sun tea with it. That would be delicious, and especially nice at this time of year. And because the stomach is surrounded by so many lymph nodes, the red clover action on the stomach in terms of like masses and tumors and cancer works with the stomach and also with the lymph. So when we think about utilizing red clover to clear the body of toxins, we also want to think about using other alternatives like burdock or yellow dock, and just giving the body an extra gentle encouragement to move any of the old toxins out. So red clover is a plant that comes from Central Asia, and I just am trying to learn more and more about where these plants come from, what the traditions around them from the indigenous people who utilize them are, and I've got some work to do with Trifolium pretense, but as I do, I will return and share that with you. And also the really cool thing about Trifolium is that they're a field plant. So as we're going for hikes, as we're going for walks, as we're working in the fields and farming, as we're working in the gardens, when we get thirsty, we can nibble on one of the flowers of red clover, and we can have some kind of like an encouragement of the salivary glands, which can then quench our thirst actually if we don't have any water. So yeah, it just sort of like turns on the salivary glands and allows us to excrete some more water from them so that we can be quenched in times of extreme dryness. So that's a lovely thing. They're edible, they'd be beautiful on a salad, and they are so abundant and so beautiful and lovely. So thanks for joining me and red clover today, and we'll be back soon. Enjoy your harvesting. Be well.